Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another webinar from the Office for Digital Learning and Online Education. I'll be your host today. My name is Nabil Al-Bashiri, Faculty Development Specialist here at Qatar University. Joining me are my colleagues, Dr. Haifa Bilhaj, Head of the Instructional Design Section, and Ms. Adana Al-Musawi, our Instructional Technologist. Both will help with addressing questions when needed. Sorry. This virtual seminar series is all about giving faculty and invited speakers a space to share ideas, experiences, and practical lessons on digital learning and AI. Higher education, as you know, is changing fast, and these webinars are a chance for us to pause, rethink, and discuss how we design, teach, and assess student learning, while keeping rigor and human connection at the core. So before we delve in, let me cover a few quick housekeeping points. This session is being recorded. We will share the recording later on our office's YouTube channel. To make sure the recording is clear, your microphones and cameras are off. That also keeps things free of background noise. And for your questions, please post them in the chat. We'll do our best to cover as many as we can during the Q&A part at the end. If you prefer, you can turn on Arabic live captions in your settings to follow along in real time. I'll pass the mic to my colleague Dana to show you how to turn the Arabic caption in your Teams webinar settings. Over to you, Dana.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second webinar. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. Can you see my Teams window now?
Yes, we can, but if you can enlarge it, double click on the ribbon to enlarge it. Yes, wonderful.
Okay. Okay, so first we want to start the live caption by going to More and then go to Language and Speech and click on Show Live Captions. So now you get the live captions, as you can see, and they are translated to Arabic for non-English speakers.
But I think they need to click on that cog sign.
Yes.
If you can show them how to do that, if you click on that cog sign.
Yeah, if the language is showing in English, you can go to the settings from here and choose language settings. And from here, choose Arabic.
Wonderful.
So now the translation will be shown in Arabic. You can go ahead, close this menu and enjoy the webinar. Welcome again, everyone.
Thank you, Adana. Now I'll take over from you and share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, so after this, Yep. We covered now the housekeeping points. Now it's time to introduce Dr. Raphael Brown, Clinical Associate Professor at Qatar University, College of Law. Dr. Brown researches AI law and regulation. His publications on AI, personhood, and regulatory sandboxes have influenced policy in the EU, the US, and the UK. In 2025, he was appointed co-rapporteur of the International Law Association's Committee on AI and Technology Law, contributing to international debates on law and technology. He also serves as an ambassador for digital learning and online education at Qatar University and brings over 20 years of experience in legal skills education, digital learning, and online teaching. In today's session, Dr. Brown will demonstrate how AI-driven case files can transform lessons into interactive, problem-based simulations. While his examples are from legal education, the methods can be applied across many disciplines. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Brown. Over to you, Dr. Brown. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Nabil. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I know it's your time is important, so we appreciate you spending your time with us for 1 hour tonight. And thank you, Dr. Nabil, and for the entire team at Digital Learning and Online Education, a group that I'm happy to be a part of as an ambassador. I'm here with you tonight to talk about practice-ready learning with generative AI. In particular, I will explain and demonstrate how I created and used legal simulation using AI to generate and create case files and a client interview simulation. Most importantly, I want to be able to show you how the current practice is going with regards to applying the same technique in other disciplines. So as you read this disclosure, it's really important whenever we use AI in our presentations and in our lessons that we disclose that we're using AI. So this is my disclosure. It's not mandatory in many institutions yet, but it is considered best practice to have such disclosures. So as we know, it's no secret that AI is ubiquitous and is transforming the work environment. It's transforming how we do work in the same way that computers and email in the early 90s transformed work. It's also no secret that AI is transforming education, how we teach and how we learn. However, while AI has had a high adoption rates among students and faculty, there are barriers that remain, largely because of institutional, ethical, and pedagogical constraints. I'm here today to show you how using AI in a problem-based simulation can enhance your teaching and also make your lessons more engaging to students. To do this, I'm going to talk about a number of things. First, I will identify the problem that I'm trying to address and kind of give a general overview of the solution, including talking about the difference between a traditional type of case file versus an AI-enabled case file and a traditional type of simulation versus an AI-enabled simulation. The heart of the webinar tonight is to do a demonstration of an AI chatbot that I used in my class starting in 2023. This is now the 3rd semester I'm using this. I created an AI chatbot with ChatGPT for client interviewing. I will explain the specs that I set out to accomplish to create this chatbot. I will set out the learning outcomes for the class, and then I will explain how I actually created this chatbot, including the case file and the chatbot. And then I'll do a brief live demo. I can't demo the whole thing or it will take up the whole time, but I'll demo part of how my students would have done a client interview. And then after that, we will break down the benefits and, of course, the limitations of this technology. Perhaps important to many of you in other disciplines is my explanation on how you could apply this or how some of your perhaps colleagues in other universities or in Qatar University are already applying this type of technology, AI simulation, in your disciplines. I'll talk about 4 disciplines in particular to highlight how this could be applied across disciplines. And then, of course, last but not least, we will try to cover some ethical concerns, some of which are at the forefront of a lot of people thinking about adopting this technology. Hopefully, we'll have some time left for some question and answers as well. So there's a problem in education that's been persistent, and it is basically a practice-ready gap in education, and it really concerns 2 things. Number one is the problem with bridging theory when we teach theory in class and bridging that with real world application. Now, that's only one set of problem, and many of us have tried different ways to try to make that happen. By creating traditional types of case file, by making our classes, for example, we take students out of the classroom and take them to the real world. A second part of this problem is even if we do create these real world applications to try to demonstrate the theory, another problem is how can we engage students in a way that's scalable, in a way that's authentic and actually captures real world scenarios. The solution that I'm proposing tonight, and that I'm proposing with the classes and how I'm using AI in my classes, is an AI-enabled simulation and an AI-enabled or AI-created case file. So there's two steps to this. The first one is to use a problem-based case file to bridge this theory and real-world application gap. The second component to this is to then simulate that case file to make it more engaging to students using generative AI. So when it comes to case file, the question is, what's new with this AI-enabled case file? Well, the traditional case file, as used in education, is usually text-based. Not to say that there hasn't been development in this, but I'm saying in its original form, it was text-based. AI-enabled case file will now allow you to use AI-generated photos, AI-generated videos, and possibly video as well to create this case file. In other words, you're no longer limited to a text-based case file. You can now have a case file with photographs and videos that actually is part of the case file and interact as part of the facts of the case file. For example, in case file that I created this semester for my client, I created a criminal law case file where the client is accused of premeditated murder. I created these three photographs, one of the victim, one of the accused, and the accused is shown in the middle photograph with a cut in his hand. None of these photographs are real. However, I recall the first day that I showed these photos to my class this semester. Some students, seriously, they were sincerely believing that these photos were real, and I had to step back and explain to them that these are AI-generated photos. That these are not real people that we're talking about in the case file. So that's the kind of effect this technology has on the students. I also created a visualization of objects that we used in the class. This photo, by the way, is very difficult to create in ChatGPT because ChatGPT won't allow you to prompt it to have blood on a knife. But I found a workaround to make that happen. Another ethical issue, I guess, that we can talk about later. I also was able to visualize the scene of the crime with a live camera, so to say, a picture of a live camera with a timestamp. So what makes this a photograph interesting in a case file is because the timestamp itself and the photo could be cross-referenced with the text-based case file, something that was quite difficult to do prior to AI, prior to ChatGPT. Because back then, you'd have to have an actual case file that actually happened in real life to be able to create something like this and make it look realistic. In addition to that, you can create videos and add that to your case file. This semester, I tried playing around with this. Unfortunately, I could only create a short video. It's a short clip of the accused pacing in the parking lot prior to the arrival of the victim. You can certainly create longer videos. This video was created using Hedera for free. It allows you to create a short video. There are, of course, other video creation tools out there that can allow you to make longer videos to recreate the whole case file if you actually had time to put into it. The second part, second component to this is the AI-enabled simulation. So the question is, what's new in what we're doing here. The traditional simulation, again, is usually text-based. And in addition to it being text-based, the simulation itself has a lot of limits, including with the time that students have to engage with the simulation, or participants have time to engage with the simulation, because the simulation, the way it's typically done, requires a lot of planning, requires a lot of pre-written text scripts for you to actually play out in real time. Now, the AI-enabled simulation allows for scalable interaction, and it also allows for unlimited personalized training. In other words, students can engage in the simulation as many times as they want to identify problems, and you could do this simultaneously with other students. It's quite scalable, not only to live sessions, but even in online education. So I see AI-enabled case file and simulations as a potential paradigm shift in education. It represents a possible shift that offers scalable, ethical, and engaging practice-ready learning for our students, not to replace teaching, but to extend good teaching. And it's really important to emphasize this. I'm not advocating for AI to replace our jobs as teachers. What I'm advocating for is using AI to extend good teaching. So you have to separate the role of AI and the role of good teachers. AI, for example, in the simulation that I'm advocating here, would generate consistent case files, for example. They can play dynamic roles in the simulation. They can act as clients, and we can interview them and hone our skills. Teachers, on the other hand, can continue to do what they're good at. They can continue to observe, give good feedback to students, meaningful feedback. They can guide students navigate complex ethical dilemmas and help students develop higher order thinking skills. So these are the things that AI cannot replace. So some of my students in the class actually asked, would this be bad if we're just memorizing this? And I told them, when you're doing the client interview, there is nothing to memorize, because you have to perform what you're being taught. And that's the kind of stuff that AI really couldn't replace. So what I want to do now is demonstrate to you how I've used generative AI in a client interview. And to do that, first, I want to set out some learning objectives that I set out in the class. Client interviewing is a complex skill that we teach students in the law school. The learning objectives include a number of what I call mini skills that together culminate to effective client interviewing. Some of these skills include being able to gather facts, being able to demonstrate proper greetings, building rapport and trust, being able to explain attorney-client confidentiality, establish the attorney-client relationship, and then, of course, demonstrate active listening skills. So there's a myriad of learning objectives that we're trying to accomplish in this lesson. The AI client, as I set out in the beginning, has certain specs that I wanted it to have. I wanted it to be able to give dynamic responses to students, but at the same time, I wanted the AI client to be able to show some emotional cues to the interviewer. And I also wanted the AI client to be able to provide documents when asked, which is what would happen in real life if you were interviewing clients. And then I wanted the facts to be consistent throughout. I didn't want one student to have a different set of facts than another student. I want the facts to be consistent throughout so that we can use the same facts for everybody in the class for the rest of the semester. At the same time, I wanted this AI client to be able to pose some real-life client concerns. Like, for example, the client we were interviewing for the criminal law case had concerns about whether they will get the death penalty. And this really like pulled at some of the emotions of the students interviewing the client. So I wanted the client to be able to ask the interviewer about some of these concerns, legal fees, confidentiality, those types of things, deadlines. And at the same time, since I'm teaching at Qatar University, I wanted the client to be able to translate. If the student spoke in Arabic, I wanted the client to be able to translate that text in Arabic and English so that I can later on read it in the transcript. So there's a whole list of things in the specs of what I wanted this AI client to be able to do. As background, before we go into the demo, I want to explain to you how I, basically ramped students up into this client interview. Before the interview, the students were given reading materials. They were shown videos of client interviewing. At least they were provided this on Blackboard, and they could watch it at their own time. We obviously had lectures on client interviewing in the class. And then in one of the classes, I created a separate AI chatbot to demonstrate how to do a client interview. Not the same one that they would do later on, but just for a demo. They could also use this demo to practice client interviewing, separate from another client interview chatbot that they would later on be tested on. In addition, I provided students with a written instruction handout that set out how to do a client interview. It set out a number of examples of questions that they could ask. And then, of course, all of the skills that they should be able to demonstrate during a client interview and how to be able to demonstrate those skills. Of course, students were provided with a rubric, all of the skills that I was grading on and the points that they were worth. So all of this is characteristic of good teaching methods. And it's something that AI should not replace. Educators should still be able to do all of these things prior to adopting AI. So I'm not advocating for AI to replace teaching. The teaching still happens. The AI simulation just adds on top of that and extends good teaching. Before I explain, before I do the demo of this AI, I also need to be able to explain to you how I created it. So there's 2 steps to creating this thing. The first one is to create a case file. Creating a case file includes creating a backstory, a factual story, detailed factual story. And then you want to create some documents with that as well. So for example, some case files, you might want to create sample contracts that students can read in addition to the facts of the story. Now this semester, I wanted to take it a step further, and I used AI to enhance the client file. So I created the client file myself first, and then I fed it into ChatGPT, asked ChatGPT to assess this story for consistency, especially consistency with existing laws and existing cases. I asked ChatGPT to help me create some exhibits, for example, prosecutorial investigation or police reports or analysis of CCTV cameras. And it created it, and I was able to review that, edit it, and add it as part of the case file. I also used ChatGPT to create some photographs and videos, as you saw earlier, that I added to the case file as well. All of this made the case file a lot richer. Now, the first part of this, creating a case file, with or without the use of an AI, is really important because you cannot really create a simulation without that case file, at least not a good one. So the second part is to create this chatbot using ChatGPT. And this is the simulation that I wanted to demonstrate to you tonight. Now, of course, you can use different types of LLMs to do this. You can use Claude or Bard. There are even dedicated chatbot platforms like IBM Watson's Assistant or Dialogflow. After looking at all of these options, it became readily apparent that ChatGPT was the most user-friendly, the cheapest one, and the one that's it makes the most sense for somebody with not a lot of programming experience. And for a lot of you, it's very likely that you will also come to the same conclusion that ChatGPT is really the easiest one to use for creating this for now. It's possible that the others will create other systems that will allow us to do more things. But for now, ChatGPT seems to be the best one to use. A second thing that I should point out is with regards to prompting. I'm going to show you exactly where that goes when you create this chatbot. But in the past, there was this obsession on prompt engineering, and you have to learn how to prompt to be able to create good chatbots in ChatGPT. Well, the new trend has changed. So the first time I was doing this a couple of semesters ago, I had to really create my own prompt. It took a while. Now the new fad is for what they call meta prompting. In meta prompting, you actually just tell ChatGPT what you want to make, and you ask ChatGPT to create the prompt for you. The prompts are usually much better than your own self-made prompts. They're more organized. And then once you meta prompt and you have a prompt template from ChatGPT, you can then tweak that prompt for the way you want it, and it makes for better results. So this is what it looks like when you're first creating this chatbot. So let me just take you to ChatGPT and show you exactly how this works. So this is what you see the first time you actually press the button that says Create GPT. By the way, you'd have to have a subscription to ChatGPT to do this. The free subscriptions won't allow you to create your own chatbots. So this is the screen you get. Here you can choose to upload a photo or create a photo using DLOE for whatever photo you want to put in there. The name is what the name of the client will be as it shows on the chatbot. Of course, the description. You can take this description, prompt it into ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to create the prompt for you. The prompt goes in this box called instructions. Okay, I'll show you later on exactly what my prompt looks like. I'll take you behind the scenes, under the hood of my chatbots. And then you can add conversation starters here. For example, if you typed in hello, that would show up here. You can press that, and that starts out the chat. You can upload files, and this is where I would upload the case files. Any exhibits that I've pre-created, I would upload it here to create consistency with the content of the chatbot. You can also choose if you want your chatbot to have the ability to search the web or to create images. I don't do that because for my purposes, it's not necessary for the students. And I also wouldn't like the chatbot to do something that I'm not able to control as well. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so now I want to show you exactly the behind the scenes from the chatbot that I created. So this is what it looks like, but I want to take you into ChatGPT to show you exactly what it looks like here. This is the prompt behind the client file. We're actually the interview that we just finished doing this semester, the criminal law client. So this is the name of the chatbot, the description, and then if you look at the prompt, you can click and it'll show you the bigger screen of the prompt. And as you can see, it's organized by system prompt, where you actually tell it the facts. So if there are specific facts you want it to refer to, you can add it there. And then you could also give it psychological state, of the chatbot. And then this part here is where I was actually typing in how I wanted this thing to respond to specific types of queries, special kind of prompts that you add in. There are developer prompts. So here you can make it bilingual, which is what I did. If there's a greeting in Arabic, it responds in Arabic and English. You can also give it states, emotional states. If it's going to be defensive or reflective or provoked, it answers that way, as I'll show you in the demo. It actually tells you how the chatbot is feeling. And then you can say what the role of the interviewee would be, which is the client. Otherwise, if you don't tell it what its role is, it'll start doing things that you wouldn't expect. And then you could also put some Q&A, sample question and answers to kind of guide it, especially for specific questions for example, students would likely ask. So before showing you a demo of the Sheikha Al-Karbi client interview, I wanted to point out some characteristics here. One, this is a bilingual AI client. You can do the interview either typing it into ChatGPT or speaking to it, and I'll demo both. At the end of the interview, you can share the transcript. You can actually go and share the transcript to the professor, so I can see exactly the questions that were asked, the response by the chatbot, and you'll have written evidence of the whole interview, which you can then give feedback on. You can sit down with the student and show exactly what they did well, what they didn't do well. And this can be done supervised in class, or you can have the students do it online on their own. I did the online for practice, and then they did the client interview in class, so I can see exactly how they were doing the interview. So I wanted to demo a client interview of the case file that we did last semester, not the one we're doing this semester. The case file last semester was a landlord-tenant case file. So the client here had problems with the tenant and came to the law firm, and so the students had to interview this client for the first time to find out exactly what the problem was. So let me just open ChatGPT, and I can demonstrate to you exactly how this goes. I hope that the sound is picked up as I show the sound later on. So here, for example, you can start with, the greeting that right there. See, since it started in Arabic, it will give you an answer in Arabic and English. So it could be bilingual, right? So I can type in and say, hello, I'm Attorney Brown. I'm here to interview you, right? And they will, respond. See, since my first questions were really not establishing rapport as yet, they're responding quietly, nod slightly. So those are the emotional cues I'm talking about. You can share this to the professor like this. Let me do that again. So you could basically create the link, and then you could take this link, copy it, and email it to the professor. The student would email that link to me, and he would email me the whole transcript. So the other thing I wanted to show you was voice mode. As you know, ChatGPT has voice mode, so we can do that now. Hello, good afternoon, Sheikha. As I understand, your name is Sheikha Al-Karbi, as I read from the client intake sheet. Is that correct?
Hello. Yes, that's right. I'm Sheikha Al-Karbi. Still a bit reserved, giving a polite but brief confirmation.
Hi, Sheikha. Thanks. It's nice to see you. Thanks for coming in today to talk to us. I understand that you have some problems with a tenant. Can you tell me more about about your business and about you?
Of course. A small nod, still a bit reserved. Well, I'm mainly in the real estate business here in Doha. We have a tenant, AMS, who's been renting from us for quite a while. And, well, there's a bit of a situation now because we want to use the property for my son's coffee shop. So that's why I'm here.
I see. I own property myself, and I understand how difficult some tenants can be. So I understand that you might be facing some problem with your tenant now.
Yes, exactly. A little more at ease now that you've related. It's been a bit challenging. The tenant has been there for a long time, and we've had some recent issues. But yes, that's why I'm hoping you can help me figure out how to move forward.
Okay, so why don't you, well, first of all, before we begin, I would like to inform you that our conversation is confidential. It's covered by the attorney-client privilege. So what you tell me stays between us. And what I want to do is for you to just tell me exactly what happened with AMS.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. That's a relief to hear. A bit more comfortable now that confidentiality is addressed. So basically with AMS, we've had them as tenants for quite a while. Recently, we asked them to leave because we want to remodel the villa for my son's coffee shop. But AMS pointed out that their lease runs until 2026, so they're not willing to leave just yet. There were also some issues with late rent in the past and some noise disturbance.
So let me end it there, just for purposes of the demonstration tonight. So, that could go on as much as you'd like it to, and the student basically gets the client to tell the story, and the student also gets the client to tell them details of the story, and that's where the student shows active listening. Student can then talk about the attorney-client relationship and the attorney fees and the next steps, for example. So there's a whole list of things that the student's expected to do. But at the end of this interview, the student can then share the transcript, to me, and then I can grade them based on the transcript and based on what I saw, in the classroom. So the benefits of this is that, one, there's enhanced engagement from student. I see this enhanced engagement visibly in my class. Before I started doing this client interviews, we couldn't do this client interview, by the way, 2 years ago, because the way you would have to do it is you'd have to hire actors to come in, and it would be quite expensive to get an actor to do a client interview, for like 30 students, for example. And we have, I have 2 sections. Not only is it expensive, it's time consuming to do that. So this AI client interview simulation is quite scalable. You can run this client interview with all of your students. It doesn't really matter how many of them there are. You could do it online. You could do it in person. And you could do it simultaneously with everyone doing it at the same time. Students can take it wherever they want. And at the same time, the students can keep revisiting and keep doing practice. You can't really do that with hired actors. You can't have the actor come back in and let's try that again. There's a limit to a real actor coming in. And of course, the good thing about it is the factual consistency. The AI client is able to keep facts consistent and going, throughout, regardless of which student and for the whole semester. There will be some inconsistency, we can talk about later on, but for the most part, the facts are very consistent. I would say 99% consistent. And of course, it helps, especially for somebody like me teaching in Qatar, that this can be bilingual as well. So this could be applied almost anywhere in the world. It's actually quite exciting. I don't want to just paint a rosy image of all of this, so I want to acknowledge limitations. There are certainly technological limitations. The voice mode, for example, even though a study that was done showed that voice mode on ChatGPT for simulation really had 80% fidelity across like multiple factors that they looked at. So it's quite good. However, when your Wi-Fi is weak, it's difficult to have like a consistent conversation. It drops, especially at my university, at Qatar University. It can drop. Additionally, there are limitations in technology, especially the difference between free users and paid users. Free users, when you're interviewing, you have a short amount of time. So if students have been practicing all night, they come to the classroom to do the interview, it will stop halfway to the interview. So you have to be mindful of that and explain that to the students and have a way to kind of address that. There are also limitations with regards to the authenticity of the interview, because this is an AI chatbot after all. You can't forget that. So it's not the same as having somebody face to face where you can see their facial expression. You can really glean something from their body movements, their facial expression, their tone of voice. You don't get that from an AI client. So because of that, there is some emotional quotient limitations on what you can test with students, what you can teach students with regards to the emotional aspect of a client interview. There's also concerns with regard to the ethical and professional identity of the student interviewing a chatbot. There's limits to that as well. Like the student's going to really feel like they're interviewing a person, or they really know that they're interviewing an AI, and how does that shape their ethical and professional identity as lawyers? So there are indeed limitations to this, but when you think of this really as a pre-stage to training students to the real thing, if you see it in that context, the benefits really outweigh the limitations. So I see this more as an AI simulation as like the first thing you do with students at scale. And then once students learn how to do the client interview, then you can set up an actor type interview. You could do that as a one-time thing. And then they will actually do better and not waste the actor's time and not waste the resources that you have for doing those kinds of interviews, those kinds of client interview practice, for example. So in terms of student reactions, I would say that students have been overwhelmingly positive about this. A lot of students even reacted very emotionally to some of the clients' concerns in the interview, which surprised me. This semester, since they're interviewing somebody accused of premeditated murder, some students were somehow, it affected them that the AI chatbot kept asking, am I going to get the death sentence? So some students really were affected by this, and I had to remind them this is an AI. You don't have to really take it that seriously. But it goes to show you that even though it's AI, the students can really get engaged with it. Certainly, there's higher comprehension among my students with regard to the client file. Prior to doing this, I would be lucky if more than half of my students really understood the client file. Now I would say that it's impossible for a student to say they don't know the client file and they don't know who the client is and they don't know what happened because of this engaging client interview. This semester, I started asking students to write a reflection journal after the client interview. I asked them to write what did they learn the most from the client interview, what did they do well and what they didn't do well. And I was quite surprised with a lot of their answers. Students really reflected on what they did, and they acknowledged some of the things that they were unable to do. That was a good thing because that means that you can actually have them do it again, even in their own time, and focus on those specific things. They can certainly continue practicing at home, with the same client because they have the link accessible to them for the rest of the semester. So the reflection journal allowed me to really start assessing how students are reacting to this compared to other semesters. And for the most part, it's been very, very positive for me. The only negative side of it was really the technical aspect of it, like cutting off, for example, for students who were on the free-based use of ChatGPT. Now, I wanted to talk about using AI case file for simulations across the disciplines. Although I started doing this in 2003 semesters ago, really late 2023, I'm not the first one to do this, and I'm certainly not the first one to do this in any discipline. People in other disciplines are also doing this. I might be one of the first to do it for client interviewing, but across disciplines, there are a lot of examples out there. For example, in education, for those of you who are, teachers, they've actually created a similar AI simulation to teach students, to teach teachers how to do parent-teacher conferences. So they have a parent-teacher conference prep buddy that they created. You can actually look this up on ChatGPT and practice, but you can certainly create your own if you wanted to tailor that to a specific context or environment. For example, for a parent-teacher conference in Qatar with parents with unique concerns, say, for example, in comparison to somebody who would be in China, different types of concerns by parents. There are other ways that you could use this in education, of course, including simulating, teacher-student kind of, engagement prior to a teacher actually going in front of students. Of course, counseling, teacher-student counseling could be kind of simulated with this again to get teachers to practice how to do that. I wouldn't necessarily advise having students use this right away as to do kind of training, especially like younger kids. But students in college, for example, like with the client interviewing, could there's less concern for bad things to happen. In engineering, you can create a design challenge simulation where an engineer would meet a potential client asking for a specific design, and the engineer can have that conversation to try to elicit information from the client to then create some sort of an engineering design. One of our colleagues at Qatar University, guy that I admire is Junaid Qadir. He wrote about this. He wrote about the possible ethical pitfalls of using generative AI in engineering education. However, he also pointed to the possibility of using AI simulations to enhance education in engineering. In business, this is as recent as April of this year. Lawrence Susskind, very famous guy from MIT. Him and another professor wanted to create a chatbot where students can then practice negotiations. And they worked with some computer scientists at MIT, so they created their own chatbot at the same time using ChatGPT as well to create this bot that taught people how to negotiate, something that I'm actually thinking about doing with my contract drafting class next semester. So you can create negotiation simulations. But of course, negotiation simulations not limited to business school. You could do this, with other schools as well. And of course, in medicine, in Dartmouth, some professors created a chatbot to teach doctors to train doctors to diagnose patients. So as you know, doctors have to sit with patients, get patients to tell them facts, and how well they actually get patients to tell them the facts, how well the diagnosis is going to be. So you can use chatbots for this kind of thing as well. Unfortunately, we can't cover all of the different disciplines out there, but perhaps in the Q&A we could talk about that if some of you have questions. If you do decide to use AI, generative AI, to create AI simulations, I would suggest to check your institutional policy on AI use. Unfortunately, and this is one of the barriers I mentioned in the beginning, institutional barriers. Unfortunately, not every institution has such policy in place. At QU, for example, we have like a very initial guideline via email that was sent to us, but it really covered only like student use of AI and how that constitutes plagiarism. It hasn't really covered, what we as educators can do in creating our own classes, but I suspect they're working on that policy now at QU, and they will come out with it soon. But certainly check your institutional policy beforehand. And of course, there's a number of ethical concerns that you have to keep in mind. So academic integrity, if you're going to ask a student to just submit something in writing and you allow them to do it at home, it could be AI made. But a simulation type of thing, it's possible that someone is helping them to do the client interview, but if they're doing it in class, it's less likely that's happening. There's concerns with bias and fairness. If the AI itself will give you biased answers, that could be an issue if you're asking the AI to actually help you with research, for example. Bias and fairness, on the other hand, the risk lowers when you're talking about simulations where you're actually control the type of document that you upload to the bot when you're prompting it, and the kind of information that the bot is able to use. It lowers the type of bias, and the bias becomes really like how you write the client file yourself. If your client file is biased, then the client interview will have biased answers as well. And then, of course, accuracy and reliability. From my experience, the simulation, client interviewing, the responses have been accurate. The AI hasn't really made up stuff that was not in the realm of the facts that was given to the AI. Even when the AI is given some room to say something, it wasn't something that changed the client file. So the accuracy of at least in the simulation is quite good. It might be different if you're asking AI to do research on the internet and then summarize those for you. Of course, there will be accuracy issues there. There are issues with confidentiality, even with simulations. The good thing about simulations is the client itself, since the client you're interviewing is AI, everything is a hypothetical. There's no confidentiality issue with that. However, when the students themselves go online and start giving information about themselves, there could be confidentiality issues. So I made sure to tell students to anonymize themselves when they are interacting with AI. Some students chose not to do that. I don't know if that should be allowed or not. We don't have a policy on that. But at the very least, we should tell our students and let them know that you encourage them not to use their real names on there. Most of my students didn't use their real names. I knew it was them who submitted because they emailed me the link from their email. But in the interview transcript itself, they don't need to use their real names. In terms of skills development, there's concerns of using AI and students don't develop skills, for example, when it comes to writing. But with simulation, I don't think this is a concern. I think in simulation, you're actually enhancing skills development, skills that would otherwise not even be developed without this kind of chatbot. The transparency part of it with the simulation happens with the transcript. Since everything that was discussed between the interviewer and the interviewee is in a written transcript that you can review, that makes the whole thing quite transparent, like for me at least. It really minimizes that risks for me. Okay, so I'll open it up to questions here. And
yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Brown. We've got a few questions. Let's start with a question on preventing student cheating and plagiarism. So based on this educational approach, how do you see, or where do you see cheating and plagiarism could happen? We cannot hear you, Dr. Brown. Can you unmute yourself?
okay, yeah. Whenever you're asking students to do work outside of the class and they have access to electronics, it doesn't really matter if it's AI or not, there is an opportunity for plagiarism. And this doesn't only apply to students, it applies to faculty as well, doing academic research. So the only way to really limit plagiarism issues when it comes to, and it's not only a concern with AI, by the way, it's a concern with any technology, because they could use, non-AI technology and be able to cheat. Even with just access to a phone, somebody could be telling them the answer and they could be writing it. So the only way to really avoid any of that is to get the writing done inside the classroom, to get the work done inside the classroom. The stuff that they should be doing outside should not be something that you're grading. If you're grading it, you need to do it inside the classroom. This was the case before AI. It's even more so the case with AI.
Okay, thank you very much. Noura Salmi was asking about the technical part of creating the chatbot. We apologize for not addressing this question as we don't have time to do that. But as I said in the chat, please feel free to watch the recorded session and go over that part. Nabila is asking whether there are any intellectual property issues when creating a chatbot and adding institutional documents. And I think you emphasized that we need to check the policy of the institution before feeding the chatbot with any sensitive documents. But do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, good question. Now, let's not confuse intellectual property copyright issues with with ownership rights of data. You know, it's easy to confuse the two. They're two different things. So when it comes to copyright, first let's talk about that. So any type of text or video or audio created by ChatGPT, created by an AI, is not copyright protected. Because the thing created it is not a person. Copyright law does not protect it. Dr. Haifa actually did a presentation on this last year, a very, very good presentation. But the second thing is, who owns, you know, any type of data that you create using AI? So technically, ChatGPT still owns that stuff, even though they don't have copyright to it. They own the data, meaning they can, you know, they have the same right as you to actually use the data that you created. Now, with regards to taking material and then uploading it to AI, I would think that the policy of confidentiality for like work, you know, products that you have at work would apply. Even more so if you're putting it on an AI where then, you know, ChatGPT, OpenAI, for example, now owns that data because you uploaded it onto ChatGPT. So there's rules in institutions about who owns work that you create. And Qatar University is no different. Anything that we create while working for Qatar University is owned by Qatar University. And in order for us to actually share that with somebody else, we need to seek permission from Qatar University, you know, to do that. So these things are unclear because institutions haven't made clear policies and guidelines about it. Those are the things that I've been kind of telling my colleagues, like, be careful what you put on these ChatGPT things. Don't just take policy papers and start uploading it, because you could be violating Qatar University policy without even knowing it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Brown. We've got a couple of minutes before we end this interesting webinar. So if you could address these three questions quickly, please. Turim is asking about the hallucination of AI, as we know. So how reliable and how much trust should we put in such tools when we train the students on legal issues? If I summarize that question correctly.
Yeah. Well, the mantra right now in the AI field is never trust, always verify. So whenever you're looking at information that you're asking AI to provide you, never assume it's correct. And the onus of verifying whether it's accurate or not always remains on you. And that's why there's that disclosure that I put up in the beginning, that I used AI on this, but I'm responsible for the content.